Hi, I'm Megan from Pop Lush Embroidery. So, if you watched my other video, you've learned the 4 basic stitches and you're ready to move on to a little bit more difficult. So, we're going to learn 3 other stitches that you can use on any of the patterns. So the first one is called the stem stitch. And the stem stitch is used in place of split stitch or back stitch. It's great for curving lines. And if you stitched as a child, this is likely the one that you learned with your grandma because it was really popular back in the day. So the first thing we're going to do is come up from the back, and like all of our other stitches, we're just going to make a running stitch. Now, if this were a back stitch, we'd be coming up ahead of the stitch. And if it were a split stitch, we'd be coming up right in the middle of the stitch. But the stem stitch, you actually come up beside the stitch. And again, it's pretty much right at the halfway point of your first stitch. And I'm going to do it in kind of a curving line here so you can see. And then you just repeat that. So you'll come up about halfway through the length of the last stitch, but just to the side of it. And you'll always come up on the same side. So in this case, I'm always coming up on the right side. And so this stitch is great because it allows you to be a little bit thicker than a back stitch, but it doesn't give that sort of chain-like effect of the split stitch. So that right there is the stem stitch. It wasn't that difficult, right? All right, so we've got the stem stitch. The next stitch we're going to do is called the chain stitch. So this one looks like a lot of interlocking kind of chain circles. It's really fun to make some great texture in your pieces. So I am going to show you a sneaky way to do this that I actually learned from Jenny of Sublime Stitching, and she learned it from someone who took one of her classes. So we're going to come up out of the fabric, and you're going to make a very, very small vertical running stitch. Now, the next time you come up, it's going to be about a 1/4 inch, or however long you want your chain stitches to be, below that running stitch. Then you're going to pass your needle under that running stitch, pull it all the way through, and you're going to go back down the same hole. So you're just using that running stitch to catch that loop. So the next time you're going to come up below your stitch again, and then you're going to pass under the stitch at the top and back down the same hole. So you're always just going through your last stitch. So you can see this is quite a chunky stitch, but I'm actually becoming quite a big fan of it. of look like linked flower petals. So you come up below, under, and down. And that's the chain stitch. All right, so we've done the stem and we've done the chain. The last one I'm going to teach you is the one I flunked when I was 7 and learning it with my grandma, but I finally figured it out. So this is the French knot. It's loved and hated equally, but it's actually not as hard as I thought. So you pick a spot, if you're practicing like I am, and you come up. Now, this is a technique that needs 2 hands. So we're going to set the hoop down. So you can do this in your lap or on a table. So with your the hand that's not holding your needle, so for me it's my left, I am going to hold the thread tight with my left hand a few inches from where the thread goes into the fabric. Then I'm going to put my needle in front of the thread. And I'm going to loop with my thread hand twice around the needle. Then I'm going to put the needle back into the fabric just beside where I came up. Still holding tight with my left hand. And now I'm going to pull down with my left hand so that those loops end up right next to the fabric. And then pick up, and I'm going to pull the needle through. And it makes a little tiny knot. So you come up, put your fabric down, hold the thread with your left hand, put your needle in front with your right, loop it round, try not to get the other end of the thread in it. Stick it in just next to where you came up. Hold down with your left hand so the thread goes to the fabric. And then pull it through. So you can use any of these 3 stitches, the stem stitch, the chain stitch, and the French knot, to embellish any of the patterns that you get from me, or to make your own.